Hi, this is Kate from Izzalicious Designs. Today I thought we would start the big project that is my little doll, and she, as you can see, she is actually quite big. She's about, let me see, I suppose about nearly 14 inches in length from the top of her little buns here to the tip of her toes. I'm going to do this tutorial in parts. She is a huge project. Also, the other thing about this little doll is that you can actually change her clothing. So I'm going to be designing her so that you can change clothes with her. As you can see, she's got underwear on under here. So that's how we're going to make her, with her underwear as an integral part of her body. And then we take her little, so there she is in her undies. And then we are going to make different little dresses and outfits for her so that you can dress your little doll. So this is her. This is my Izzy Bizzy, named after obviously my daughter. And we were going to start today on her feet, on her little legs, her shoes, and work up to here. Alright, so I'm going to do it in sections. It is a big project. Things you're going to need, well, I've made her hair brown, so I've used brown band. You can use whatever colour you particularly like. I'm using a skin tone for her skin, obviously. I've put the hair on using buttons, so you might need a couple of buttons. I've used my button technique to attach the hair because I thought that at a later stage we might be able to do, take these off and swap it for like a big ponytail or two pigtails or something like that. So and then we can give her different hairstyles. I'm using the Safety Doll eyes. These are the larger ones. I think these are a 12mm. I could be wrong, they might be 9, but I think they're 12. I'm using white bands for her underwear and for her little socks, and black bands for her shoes. And then you can use whatever you like as the little hair ribbons. I've used purple and green. And then for her dress, I've used 2 shades of different purple, and I've used black as a little belt. So again, you can use whatever colour you want to make her little dress. A variety of colours, it doesn't really matter. But that's what we're going to work on today. So we're going to do the legs first in this first part of the tutorial. As you know, there are 2 ways that we can make our magic ring. We can use our loom to make it, or you can do it on your hook, as I've described before. And I'm going to do it on the loom because I just feel it's easier to demonstrate to those of you that are new. So take a single band, and we're going to wrap it once and twice on your little hook, just one peg, I'm sorry. And then we're going to take 6 bands. Now we're doing a magic ring with 6 bands in it, so let's count out 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And I'm going to turn my loom around actually, because it's much easier if you do it with the open part of the peg facing away from you. So let's change that. Once and twice. So you'll end up with 3 little loops. Alright, I use a 2.75mm crochet hook. I find that it's a little easier to work with instead of the bigger ones, and my stitches come out just a little bit smaller with less gaps between them because I'm not stretching them as much. Pull your first band through, reclaim one over the other. We're just doing a normal magic ring. Now I'm going to assume that you have watched my beginner's guide to Loomigurumi, or at least some of my tips and tricks with the different stitches and how to do a magic ring made easy and stuff like that. This is not a beginner's design, so I would hope that you are familiar with the stitches before progressing with this. Otherwise you're going to be getting rather frustrated with me. So there we go, here's our magic ring with 6. Now we're going to be making 2 of these. Alright, so I'm just going to be making 1 on the actual on the camera with you. It'll take too long otherwise, and this is going to be a long project anyway. But just remember that whatever we do for our leg, you're going to do 2 of. So getting some black bands. Our first thing that we need to do is do increases all the way around. I'm going to get a little stitch marker. Now you can use a stitch marker, you can use a C-clip or an S-clip, they work just as well. Even a paper clip works well. Okay, it's just to mark where the beginning of your round is. Now a round is when you have gone completely around, because we're working in rounds. Alright, so if you look here, this is our first stitch here. First stitch, second stitch, third stitch, fourth stitch, fifth stitch. Our sixth stitch is on our hook, Push your hook through that first stitch. Now to do an increase, you're doing 2 single crochets in that first stitch. So let's pull our band through and reclaim and do our first single crochet, and we will mark that as our first stitch for the end of our round. Push your hook through that first stitch again, and we're going to do a second single crochet. So we've done 2 single crochets in that first stitch. Move to your second stitch. We're going to do 2 single crochets in this, and this will increase the amount of stitches you have around from 6, which we started with, to 12. I'm in my third stitch. I'm in my fourth stitch. This is my fifth stitch. I'm doing 2 in that. And this is my sixth. My first one. And here is my second. Now if you count, your first stitch has the stitch marker 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and number 12 is on your hook. I'm going to move my camera slightly so that we have better angling. Push your hook through the first stitch that has the stitch marker. We're going to do a single crochet, and we're going to move our stitch marker so that we are sitting on that stitch now. That's our new first stitch. Now what we're going to do is a round of single crochet followed by an increase. So that was our single crochet in our first stitch. We'll move to our second stitch and we'll do an increase. So there's our first single crochet. Let's do the second one in that stitch. Now we'll do a single crochet, and in the next stitch we'll do our increase. So this is the pattern for this round. Single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase. Oops, make sure you go through both loops. Single crochet, and an increase. Single crochet, and we finish on an increase. Now these shoes, they can be any colour you want. If you wanted to wear red shoes, let's do this in red. You know, it doesn't have to be black. Push your hook through that first stitch again. For the beginning of our next round, we'll pull it through, and I know that it's going to be a single crochet, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to move my stitch marker. So our next round is going to be, and I should mention, by the end of this, you should have 18 stitches around. Okay, our next one is going to be 2 single crochets followed by an increase, and that will leave us with 24 stitches. This was our first single crochet. Here's our second, and now we do an increase, and the increases make things bigger, okay, as you can tell by how the stitch count goes up. We do 2 single crochets, 1, and in the next stitches is another one, 2, and then we do an increase. 1 and 1 back in the same stitch again. 2 single crochets, our first one, our second, and we'll do an increase. 1 and 2 single crochets. That's our first. Here's our second, and now we do our increase. 1 and another one in that same stitch. 2. Oopsie, let's link those back together. 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and an increase. 1 and 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and we'll finish on an increase. 1 and 2. Alright, we're going to count our stitches. This is our first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 is on my hook. That's correct. So good. So our next round is still going to be, it's going to be single crochet, but we're going to actually be working on the inner part of the band. Okay, so if you look, and I'm going to take the stitch marker out, I know this is my first stitch. If you have a look here at this first stitch, okay, you've got 2 sides to the band. You've got the front side here that's facing you, right here, there we go, and you've got the back one, which is here. We're going to just work on this little inner one. Now this is the loop from the previous stitch, so don't worry about that. So instead of having 2 loops on your hook, you're just going to have the single one. You can call it the inner or the front part of this band. All right, so we're going to do single crochet all the way around. So you do a normal single crochet, pull it through, and we'll put our stitch marker back. That's our first stitch. And the second stitch, you're going to go through just that first part, the loop that's closest to you. Single crochet all the way around, just in that front inner loop. And again, at the end of this round, you should have 24 stitches. You shouldn't have increased or decreased your amount of stitches. My bands are going all over the place. Let's move that up the way so I have some room. Make sure you don't miss a stitch. Oops, just through that front one. My last one, just through the front. I'm back to my first stitch here. I'm going to put my hook through. Okay, now I'm going to do a complete round of single crochet going through both loops this time. You see how this has come up at an angle? So now I'm just going to continue coming up at that angle. So we're just going through both of those, both loops, working in both sides. So let's do our first single crochet and move our stitch marker, and then do an entire round of single crochet. And again, we haven't increased or decreased, so you should end up with 24 stitches at the end of this round. Oops, runaway band. Now I can see there's a tiny little stitch in there. I nearly would have missed it. And can you see how this one is larger and this one is smaller, so the tension on that is not very good. So I just evened it up a little bit. So this is single crochet all the way around. Going through both loops. And I'm on my last stitch. Stretch that out so that it's even. There we go, let's count. Okay, this is our first stitch on the blue stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 is on my hook where it should be. So now we're going to work on a foot. We're going to do some fancy footwork. What we're going to do is 6 single crochets, okay? Then we're going to do 12 single crochets on the inner loop, okay, the front loop, and then 6 on both loops. A bit tricky, I know, but that's what we're going to do. So here's our first. 1, and change your stitch marker to that. I'm going to count. This is 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going through both loops, and here is 6. So that was 6 going through both loops. Now I'm going to do 12 going through just this front loop here. Single crochet still. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, just that front loop, and 12. Now you can have sorted them out into little piles of bands if that would have made it easier for you. That's easy enough to do. Now we're going to finish off the rest of this round going through both loops. So that was our last one that we did. So this is our next stitch. We're going through both loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our last stitch 6. Okay, so we've gone through 12 to make it face this way, and the others are facing up. So we're starting the shape of our little shoe. So our first stitch going through, we're going to do again 6 single crochets. So move our stitch marker, this was number 1. 6 single crochets going through both loops. So that was 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, and here's number 6 through both loops. Oopsie. There we go. Now what we're going to do is decrease those 12 that we did on the inner loop. We're going to decrease them, so we're going to join 2 together for the next ones. So in our next stitch we've got 1, this is our next stitch here, and get the next stitch to it and put them both on your hook, and we're doing a decrease. Alright, so here's our first decrease, and then go to the next stitch and you're doing a decrease here, and then the next stitch, 1 and 2, you're doing a decrease here, so that's 3 decreases that you've done. And then the next stitch is here, put your hook through both of those. This is 4, your 4th decrease, and then we'll do our 5th decrease, and lastly we'll do our 6th decrease, like that. Okay, and now we're going through both, we're still going through both loops, we went through both loops here, we're just doing single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our last one, number 6. Okay, so can you see how the little shoe is starting to form? So next I'm going to get 6 bands, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So we're going to push through our first one. We'll do 6 single crochets. Here is number 1. 2, 3, I'm sorry, we're doing 4 single crochets. 4, so 4 single crochets, and now what we're going to do is 4 decreases. So move your hook through the next stitch and grab the one next to it, and we decrease. So 4 single crochets for the first stitches. 1, and then go to the next stitch and the one next to it. 2, next one, 3, and 4. So there's our decreases, and we will finish this round with single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now the reason we've done 6 here and 4 here is because our starting point sort of migrates around the ring with us, and so we have a shorter amount here and a longer amount here, so that's why I did it like that. I can see a band that just needs tightening. There we go. And if it looks a bit wonky and odd looking, don't worry, once you've put your stuffing in, it actually holds its shape very nicely. Okay, now we're going to move to our white bands, and we're going to do a complete round of single crochet in white. Now to change the colour here, I'm going to go through my first stitch, I'm going to pull my white band through, add the black band that's on my hook to that, like this. I'm going to take my single stitch marker and put it on the white band. I'm not going to do anything, I'm moving to my second stitch. I'm going to do a single crochet. I'm going to get one over the other. I have my little loop here. I'm going to pull that loop through these first 2. And that's so I can do a cleaner colour change. And I'm now just going to go around doing single crochet in white, if my bands will cooperate with me. Bands, hands, hook, all of the above. So I'm just going through each stitch, both sides. I'm not working the inside loop or the outside loop, I'm working both. Here's my last stitch from the black shoe. Now, our next round is going to be in the back post, okay? And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to go through, now let me explain first. This first stitch is where we did our colour change, so I definitely want to go through the 2 that are furthest away. See how I've got this two loops here, 2 loops here. I want to go through the first 2 loops here. So even though I'm going to work in the back post for the rest of the stitches, I want this one to be pulled forward. So I'm going through that one, I'm going to do a normal single crochet, and I'm going to move my stitch marker. And that then brings this into line so it doesn't look like such a bad colour change. Now what I'm going to do is work the rest of my stitches in the front post. Now, I'm sorry, the back post. Working in the back post means I'm going to push my hook through from the back side. Okay, so I'm pushing, and I'm not going to be going through that one because I've just done this one. So this is the one I'm going through. Let me see if I can make myself understood there. This is where I did my single crochet and pulled this forward. So this has already been worked on. This is my next stitch. So I'm going through the back and popping out from the front like this. And This is called working the back post. Now you just do a normal single crochet. If you need help with this stitch, on my tips and tricks, and I will link it to this video, so up the top right hand side you'll see a little I for information, and it will link, I will add the card that goes to the playlist for all of my stitches tutorials, to help make things a little easier for you. So you're pushing through and finding this little front back post, push through and come through the next stitch, and there's that post. Push through the front and out the back. Through and pop through. So you're not working in the loop at all, really, you're just working in, so there's my loop, see, so I'm working here under the loop. And here's my last one. And I'm back to my first stitch. Now, what we're going to do next is 3 rounds of single crochet. Okay, so this is my first stitch here. I'm going to put my hook through, do my single crochet, and I'm going to move my stitch marker to that spot. I'm going to go, this is my second stitch, single crochet, third stitch, come back here, fourth stitch, fifth stitch, six, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and this is 14. So that was our first round. We're going to do 2 more. Okay, so back through that first stitch, and we'll just do single crochet. No increases, no decreases, so you should end up with 14 again. Okay, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oopsie, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and our last one, 14. Got one more round to do of this, working in both sides of the loop. Move our stitch marker to this. Let's do another round of white, and then we change to skin tone. Now, as you progress with the length of the leg, I would recommend stuffing as you go, but don't stuff to the top of your work. Just sort of stuff a little bit, you know, down the bottom of your work, and then do a bit more and stuff and do a bit more, sort of thing. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. Now, you should not be increasing or decreasing your stitches from 14, okay? If you do, if you end up with more stitches than 14, you've added, or less, you've decreased by mistake. Alright, so that was our 3 rounds in white. So there's her little foot. Now I'm going to change to skin tone. I'm going to do a round in skin tone. So again, I'm changing my colour. So I'm going through that first stitch. I'm going to pull my skin tone band back, add the loop that's on my hook, and move my stitch marker. If you need help doing this colour change on a continuous round, which is what we're doing, I have the tutorial in my tips and tricks playlist. One over the other, and pull this little loop here, the third loop, through both of those. So let's do our first round in skin tone. I'm going to do a couple of rounds in skin tone with you because I want to show you how to do the ruffle for her sock. Now, you don't have to do the ruffle for her sock, but I think it looks rather nice. And we get to our last stitch for this round. If you remember, you've got the 2 loops here and the 2 loops here. You're going through these 2 furthest away from you. Do your single crochet and move your stitch marker. Let's go around again. Remember, you've already worked this stitch, so this is your second stitch. And be careful with that because that's how you could increase. Without meaning to. Now we don't have to do any fancy footwork to continue because we already did that at the join. So we just keep going. So that was our first stitch here. Push your hook through and move your stitch marker. Now this is her little leg, okay? You're going to do a little ruffle of white bands around this. I'm going to start at the back and I'm going, this is where my skin tone started and this is where my white ended. I'm going on the bands where the white ended, and it's like I'm working in the back post. Okay, so I'm pushing my hook through like this. I'm taking a white band and flicking it, pulling it through like that, like a little chain. I'm going to take another chain, I'm going to take another white band and chain it like that. I'm going to go through the next little post, okay, which is here, and I'm going to take a white band and pull it through. And I'm going to add, I'm not reclaiming it, I'm going to add this little loop here. Let me do that again. So I'm going through the next little loop here to that back post, take my next band, pull it through. I'm not reclaiming, I'm going to pull that loop through and capture those first two like that. And then I have my band here, and I'll chain another, go through the next back post, pull my band through, capture those ones that were on my hook, chain another, go through the back post, pull my band through, capture those bands, chain another, go through the back post, pull my band through, capture these onto it, chain with another white band, go through the next back post. So you're going through the back post of the last white, add these two, chain, go through the back post, pull through, capture those, chain, back post, and just follow the line made by the white bands, okay, especially at the join. Chain, and this I think is my last back post. I'm flicking everything everywhere. I'm going to chain, and here is where I started, so I'm just going to go through one of the bands where I started, and I'm going to pull this through all of them and let go. Go through one like that, pull through all of them, and I'm going to tie a slip knot. I'm going to go inside my little leg here, and I'm going to pull that tie off band. I'm going to go through the middle here. I'm going to pull that back through so that the band is on the inside, okay, and that's fine. You're not going to see that because when the stuffing is in there, that's going to be hidden. Now at this stage I would suggest maybe stuffing to about here, just so that you have the shape of the foot, because otherwise it's going to get a little bit tricky. So let's stuff our little foot. You always want to make sure that you don't stuff too much, because otherwise you'll pull your stitches apart and you'll see these great gaping holes. So I use the 100% polyfill. I find it's quite light and soft, easy to work with. Other people have used tissues, cotton wool ball, toilet tissue. One lady takes the stuffing out of her husband's pillow and he hasn't even noticed yet. I love that story. Another lady chops up her husband's old t-shirts. Another lady suggested using old stockings and tights. That was a fantastic idea, I thought. So yeah, old rags, old yarn pieces, anything really. So I've just stuffed the little black shoe part. I'm not coming up too far because I get really irritated if I'm having to try and loom or crochet through stuffing. That irritates me. So I've just done the toe part so that she's got a little bit of a foot happening here. And now what we're going to do, it's going to be terribly boring, is we need 17 rows in total, rounds in total of these skin tone, and we've done 2. So we need to do 15 more rounds of single crochet all the way around. What I would suggest you do, if you're not going to write it down and tick them off, count out your bands. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. Have a little pile here, and then your other pile the other side is going to be where you're taking them from. So I'm going to pop my hook through. Now I've said 15 because I've already got 2 rounds here. So I'm going to go through, I'll take one from the round that I'm counting on, and I'm just doing single crochets. Then I take them from the other side, whoops, and I flick them into the wrong pile. So we're just doing single crochets. Now if you remember, when we get to the end of this round we will count how many stitches. I believe there's 14. You should not increase or decrease from that amount. There should be 14 when you have done your 15 more rounds. And I'm saying 15 more rounds so that you have a total of 17 rounds. We'll count our bands, our stitches at the end of this. Make sure you go through both, working both sides of the loops. This is my last stitch. My first stitch is here on the blue, so let's count. We've got 1 on the blue, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 is on my hook. That's how it's supposed to be. I have all of these, so I have another 14 rounds to do of single crochet. When we've all done that, let's meet back up. So I have now a total of 17 rounds in flesh tone. I have stuffed, and I've not stuffed so far that it's oozing out of the top. I want to make sure that I still have room here to loom without stuffing getting caught in my hook and my bands. So I've sort of got about, I suppose, 2 rounds that are not stuffed. Now what I'd like you to do is restart this video and let's make another one so that you end up with 2 legs. And I'm going to stop this video at this point, and in part 2 we're going to join our legs together and build up our torso. So these are our legs. At this point you're going, I was going to say rewind, but you can't exactly rewind. Go back to the start of this video, make another leg so that we can join these 2 together and build our torso. Alright, so I will catch you in part 2 of this video.